Okay, we'll call the city council regular scheduled meeting for Monday, November 5th, 2007 to order. And we'll begin with the prayer from Pastor Tom Christensen from the Lutheran Church of Our Redeemer.
Let us pray. Precious Lord, holy and almighty God, all goodness and grace comes from you and from you alone. We do thank you for the gift of good government, and we do pray a blessing upon our elected leaders, that you give them good guidance this evening as they make decisions that affect our citizens. During this month of Thanksgiving, we're thankful for the bounty of the harvest. We're also mindful that we're coming up on Veterans Day, and we're thankful for the gifts that those who have wore the uniform of our country have given. For those that have served, for those that have given the ultimate price, we also give you our thanks and praise. Bless us this night and bless us this week with the work that you have before us, that all that we say and do might be unto your glory. In this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Roll call, Tracy, please.
Arbogast.
Here.
Garnos. Gisselbeck.
Here.
Heller.
Here.
Meisenheimer.
Here.
Solberg. Solem.
Here.
Walder.
Here.
Wilkins. And York.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Have a motion for the approval of the minutes of the city council meeting held on October the 15th, 2007. So moved by Alderman Heller. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any additions or corrections? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 2 is the application for a transfer and ownership of a retail on-off sale malt beverage license from Judith E. Meyer, doing business as Country Casino at 815 35th Street Circle Southeast, to Jenny L. Ingalls, 815 35th Street Circle Southeast. And we'll begin with the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to that issue? Tracy, I believe everything is in order, isn't it? If not, then I'll close the public hearing and request council action for the approval. Is there a motion? So moved by Alderman Meisenheimer. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any questions, discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 3 is the application for a temporary location transfer and return of a retail on sale liquor license owned by the Number One Casino Incorporated as follows. A, for the period beginning at 5 o'clock p.m. December the 15th, 2007, and ending at 2 o'clock a.m. December the 16th, 2007, from 1006 14th Street Southeast to 1910 West Kemp. And I'll begin with the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to the issue? No one speaking. I'll close the public hearing and request council action. Is there a motion? So moved by Alderman Garnos. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Alderman Solem. Questions, discussion?
I just have a comment. I know we've done this on several occasions, but it seems like we've always done it for a place that maintained a presence that was big enough to accommodate large groups, but not quite big enough for the one that's supplying. This is a little bit different. I mean, this is for a Christmas party, I understand. Is that correct?
That's correct, I believe.
That's my understanding, yes.
Are we still within our limits to do that? I mean, can we just take any liquor license and transfer it out there for our Christmas party?
That's essentially what has been done in the past, yes.
But we've always used large places. I remember we did it several times for Sunnyside. They maintained a large business that would accommodate a large crowd, but not quite what they needed for that particular application. This is a little bit different thing. I don't know. Does anybody else have any feelings on it?
Any other questions or discussion? Thank you, Alderman York. If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 3B is the period after 2 o'clock a.m., December 16th, 2007, from 1910 West Kemp to 1006 14th Street Southeast. Again, we'll begin with the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to the issue? Basically, is we are returning the license then to the original location from whence it was transferred. If not, then I'll close the public hearing and request council action. Is there a motion to approve the return?
So moved.
So moved by Alderwoman Walder, seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any questions or discussion?
Just would like to reply to Nancy's. I think the ball has to start rolling with permission from the original license holder before anything can be done. And once that agreement has been made, traditionally it's been approved, I believe.
Any other comments or discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 4 is the assessment roll for the 2007 street and alley projects. That's resolution number 07-61. We'll begin with the public hearing, and Dave Peterson, I'll let you start.
Yes, all of the work has been completed on the 4 different projects that were included in the 2007 street and alley projects, and the contractor has received or has applied for final payment on the project. A special assessment roll has been calculated based upon the final costs of the project, and notices have been sent out to the property owners. And this is the time for the property owners to, if they have any questions or comments concerning the special assessment roll.
Have you received any comments at all, Dave?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Is there anyone else here to speak? Yes.
It's all of the projects.
The
John?
alley behind my son-in-law's house was redone up there, and he's got quite an assessment. And since I don't know of anyone who was unhappy with the alley as it was when it started, until the city screwed it up by putting too much gravel in there and creating a dam, I think this assessment should be at least cut in half.
John, would you want to identify is this your son and daughter-in-law?
No, it's my daughter and son-in-law.
Your daughter and son-in-law. Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Donald Lee Gable.
Okay.
The address is 19 East Highland Boulevard. But I think this assessment is too high because there was nothing wrong with the alley until the city went up there and messed it up.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else to speak to the assessment roll?
I'm Ann Tacker. My property is 1116 North Broadway. It was behind my property and the one adjacent to mine where the big mud hole was. And I'm here supporting what Jack has to say. If they had to come in and dumped all the gravel on the section, excuse me, that ran between Broadway and Maple, we wouldn't have had nearly the problem that we had. The gas line was replaced in that section of the alley the night before a big rainstorm came, and rather than correct the situation and take it back to the original level, they came and dumped in layer upon layer upon layer of gravel. The engineers should be able to tell you how much they had to cut out. Behind my house, I believe they had to cut down 7 inches. There were other places where they were cutting down more. So, I speak in support of that.
In other words, you feel that your assessment was too high too, is that correct?
Yeah,
And how much was your assessment?
$900 approximately.
Okay, do you have any idea what you think it should be then?
I don't have an idea, but we wouldn't have had a problem had they not come in and messed up that section of the alley. It's a T alley.
Were you one of those that voted against that petition?
No,
You'd spoken in favor of it?
absolutely,
I see.
because the mud hole is right behind my house and the house adjacent to me. After, in the spring, when the rain melts, or when the snow melts, when it rains heavily, there was no using that section of the alley. The only direction for me to go was north.
And now you can use it then, is that it?
Absolutely, well, they cut it down, it drains beautifully now.
I see.
Before it didn't, it just, where the T is, this is where it stopped. This is where it's supposed, okay, you've got a T in the alley. This is where it was supposed to drain out to. This is where it all stopped. Okay. Do you know how much they cut down behind Ann's house?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay, I mean, the records will tell you how much they had to cut down, but they were cutting that much out in certain places. The house that is next to me has it's right on the alley, right here, and they have a cement pad that comes off the steps to the house. When it was originally put in, that cement pad was almost a foot above the level of the alley. After the gas line fiasco, the garage that's behind that house was lower than the level of the alley, and the gravel was up level with the concrete pad. So they came in and put a Band-Aid over a situation rather than fix it correctly.
Okay, thank you. Dave, do you have anything that you could add to this? Because I certainly don't know what,
I can't speak to what happened as far as the alley, because I'm not, this was the first time I had actually heard of what these people are talking about, as far as that there was a problem of that type. I knew there was a drainage problem, but this is,
Brought up at the first meeting.
We've talked about it. I don't know if it was you, but there was somebody who talked about it. Dwayne Willis was there. He's the one
that was that after the project was started to begin with?
that's
When we
the reason-
started on the design?
No, that is the reason that we requested the alley be paved.
I just have a couple of comments. I really don't know what the Tacker's problems are. I do know of a mess that was up there in the alley. Called up there half a dozen times and took a look at it, and this is a bona fide attempt by the city to fix the existing problem up there. That was not created by the city. It was created by however people put their garages and whatever on the alley. It was a complete mess. I hope it's fixed now. And to come in at this late date and say, well, we paid too much money is kind of silly in my estimation.
I may rebut that. My brother's house was the first house or second house built on Highland Boulevard. There was nothing wrong with the drainage in that alley until the city came in and put in layer after layer of gravel. There was nothing wrong with it. You had no complaints prior to that, did you? Yes, we did. Not at that point. And
You're right.
This was,
When the
this,
second house was built on Highland Boulevard, we had no complaints then. It's been since then. The second house built on Highland Boulevard had to be 50 years ago.
no, it's a little more than that, if you don't mind. Today is my 52nd anniversary, and it was long before that we built that house. And I'm fully aware of what the drainage is like up there. And I know that there were no complaints before the gas line was put in. At least there were none from my brother. And when the gas line was put in and they changed the contour of the alley by just dumping more and more gravel in there, they built a dam that flooded the backyards of the people on the north end of the block. And unfortunately, it did not bother my brother's property, but I had to ask that a curb be put on the south side to prevent the water from running straight across and through my brother's lot. The drainage was not a problem until that gas line was dug up.
That may
the
very
city
well
cre-
be. That may very well be. I don't know about that. I've only been on the council in the past 15 years or so, and we've had a problem up there ever since then. This was a bona fide attempt by the city and the city engineer's office to fix the problem.
This was a Band-Aid, as Ann told you, put on a problem that the city created. There was no problem before.
Okay.
If they had put it back to the original grade,
Okay.
there wouldn't have been a problem.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else to speak to the issue?
I just need to amend the comment.
Yes.
It's not the city who dumped the gravel in who caused the problem. It was a contractor that was hired by the city. So maybe we need that little clarification there. I'm not saying that Alderman Heller came in and dumped the gravel, but it was the contractor who was doing the work that you guys hired.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience in regards to this issue?
Well, I
Yeah.
think we're being a little bit blindsided because we have no idea what really has happened. Is everything okay now? That would be my question. I mean, how is making the assessment lower going to make the problem any better?
It's not going to make the problem better, but it's a charge for something that we didn't really need. There was no need.
Is
for
the
this.
charge different than what they knew it was going to be last spring, Dave? Did they get charged more because of all the problems, or?
No, the original estimate on this project was $17 to $20 a front foot,
Okay.
and the project came in at $18.11 per front foot.
So is that more than what you expected it was going to be, or what?
Could we just get a comparison as to what the costs were on the other projects, and then maybe we'd have a fair idea as to what it should have been?
Because everybody usually knows what it's going to cost them up front, correct, Dave? Isn't that correct? I mean, approximately.
Yeah, I mean, we do an estimate to
Yeah.
begin with. I mean, that's what I gave you, was the $17 to $20 a linear foot that we estimated that it would cost. Now,
Okay.
to compare it to other alleys or other projects, I mean, they're all a little bit different. Some of them are narrower as far as
Depends
the
on what they need.
asphalt. Some of them don't take as much grading to get the drainage out. So
Okay, so David, they were told, what, $17 were they, you said?
17 to 20,
Okay, so at 17, it was how much?
it's $18.11.
But I mean, what would the bill have been if it was 18 or 17?
Well, it depends on the front footage.
But I mean, we know that they're being charged 900 and some dollars, right? And that was
Right.
based on $18?
That's based on $18.11 a foot.
Oh. Well,
Depends on how much property each one owns.
Okay.
As far as,
But did the project end up okay? That's what I'm asking. Ann said it drains perfectly now. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Everything is the way it was supposed to be to start with, only there was some bumps along the way? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, the reason the project was requested to begin with
Yeah.
is because of the problem that was created when their gas line was replaced. We wouldn't have had to have that, had the grading and the gravel and the repair work been done correctly.
And that was before last spring when you petitioned for the alley to be put in?
Yes, that was,
So all that was history? All that was
but had they done it correctly, Nancy, the way it should have been done,
the utilities you're talking about, utilities department?
the contractor, whoever was in charge of replacing the gas line and then returning the alley to returning the alley to the status quo, where it should have been returned to. Had that been done correctly, we would never have had this drainage issue. The property to the south of me that has the garage that was below the grade level, when this project was started, when that was built, it was above, it was not down in a hole. It was above the level of the
And at the time when utilities put in that gas line, did you talk to them about it and say, something is wrong here now, you've messed this up? Was there a conversation at that time?
I don't know, I actually was out of town when it happened.
You have to wait until you have water or rain or whatever.
Well, we're still at the public hearing, so I guess what we'll need to do, is there anyone else to speak to this? If not, then I'll close the public hearing and go to council action.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
If I may add one more thing.
Okay.
You seem to think that the alley had to be fixed. We would have had no cost at all if it had not been for the contractor who came in and filled it all up. There'd been no cost. Nobody would have applied for anything. This was a problem created by the city itself, replacing the gas line. It's not something the property owners did. We didn't need any replacement of that alley. And there was no request for replacement of that alley until they built a dam there and destroyed the natural drainage.
But wasn't
I don't
there-
think that we
Wasn't there a request for that alley to be blacktopped?
There may have been.
Did you guys sign the petition?
The reason
I did not.
we requested it is because we
Yeah, you
had
see
to
what they're
fix the
saying.
problem.
Yeah.
You had to
Okay.
fix the drainage problem. It
Okay.
wasn't for blacktopping of the alley.
We can't resolve anything tonight. As far as the rate, this was known by the adjoining landowners at the time. But I'm going to request that perhaps our city engineer can take another look at those two properties and see if we can work out something with the utilities department to rectify anything that may be askew at this time.
There's nothing complained about being askew at this time. There's nothing wrong now. The problem is the amount of the assessment for something that didn't have to be done until the city screwed it up.
It sounds like it's a discussion we should have had last spring, before the project ever
somebody
started.
must-
Something that should have been done 30 years ago.
But I mean, before we started the project last spring.
It didn't happen
No,
last spring.
no.
It didn't happen 2 years ago. It didn't happen 5 years ago. It happened 30 years ago.
No, it didn't happen 30 years ago.
Well,
Mr.
25,
Heller.
whatever.
No, not that long ago either. The people who built the garage to the south of me built it in the late 90s.
Okay.
When they put it in, it was above the level of the alley.
Okay, well, let's,
Excuse
No,
me, sir.
no, Garnis, don't do that.
I really don't appreciate that.
I don't either.
That is incredibly rude, and then you will not even meet my eyes.
What are you talking about?
You!
Oh, pshaw. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
All right, that's it. Okay, we're going to council action and need assessment levy on those two pieces of property.
I would make that motion.
By Alderman Garnis, any further discussion or questions? Dave, would you meet up with these folks and then set up a title?
Yeah.
Okay, very
Who
good.
do you want involved?
Pardon? We're gonna okay the assessment roll for all those properties except those two, so that we can meet with them privately on this and get this thing ironed out, so.
I guess, who do you want involved?
Well, it'd be
as far as-
myself and you and, Alderman Garnis and Alderwoman York,
Okay,
okay?
You should have the council people from their ward.
And the council people from their ward, would be Alderman Solom and George, okay. All of us put our heads together, I think we can iron this out to everyone's satisfaction, so.
Could you read the motion again?
The motion is to approve the assessment roll for the properties except for, is it 19 East Highland Boulevard? And 1116 North Broadway, is that correct? Are those the
It's-
two
it's just-
properties?
It's just the one property.
Oh, okay,
It's 0701B.
0701B?
That's the project. yes.
Okay, all
I
right.
believe the intention was to eliminate just those two properties that were mentioned? Is that your intention?
Yes.
Not the entire project?
No, just those two until we can meet with these people and get this ironed out. And then we'll come back and approve those.
It may be well advised that if you're gonna alter theirs, there may well be people in the same situation. that
There's
simply aren't
probably
here
other
tonight.
ones in that same
Maybe you want to
project.
withhold on the entire 701B. Address
Okay.
that then at our next meeting.
Is that okay, Nancy?
That would be my motion.
Is that your okay? All right, then we'll withhold that then, and then I'll have all those in favor then say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Dave, I'll let you arrange that meeting then. Okay, going on to agenda item number 5 is consideration of bids for construction of the landfill force main and lift station project. Dave again, Peterson.
Bids were opened on October 19th for the landfill lift station and force main project. 8 bids were received, with the low bidder being B&B Contracting Incorporated of Aberdeen, South Dakota, in the amount of $587,869.05. It's a recommendation of the consulting engineer, Helms and Associates, and also the Public Works Committee, that this contract be awarded to B&B Contracting.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion then to award this contract to B&B Contracting? So moved by Alderman Giselbeck. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Solom. Any discussion, questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 6 is the Carter May Edition zoning ordinance, first reading, ordinance number 07-32. And Rick?
Thank you, Mayor. Simply put, ordinance number 07-32 is entitled, "An Ordinance Amending Zoning District Boundaries by Zoning Real Property in the Plat of Carter May Edition." And that is a plat that has yet to be performed. We're getting a little bit out of sync to meet a time frame of the applicant on this one, but I'll show you very briefly, if I can find it, its location. You'll see US Highway 212 on the screen right now, and this has been included in your packet, I believe. You can see the TSC store. This is the intersection of Highway 212 and 23rd Street East, Willow Creek Way on the left. Carter May Edition is shown in the blue. You can see the adjacent properties along 212 are already zoned C3. The requested zoning is C3 as well. And we'll take this up in a couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Rick? Not? Thank you, Rick. Agenda item number 7 is the update on the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And Karen, I'll let you give us a report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Council. Nice to be here, and we'll talk tourism again, and that's really fun, right? But thank you for asking me to be here today, and you asked me to be here to just give you an update on the new corporation of the Watertown Convention and Visitors Bureau Incorporated. But before I start that, I have to tell you some exciting news. And through August, the BBB tax is up 17%, and we are really excited about that. That was 1.7% last year, so what an increase that is. And you know, usually when the vacationers and the family vacationers go back, we don't see this increase is what we're seeing now in the hotel industry and restaurants and that kind of thing. But we are seeing the hunters are phenomenal. We're just seeing a ton of hunters. It used to be that they would come in for the just the opening weekend and that was it. But we're seeing them now way into in the end of November that they're staying. And I just had a personal experience beside being at the Redland Center, and we're seeing them on a day-to-day basis before the hunting begins and visiting with them. But I was in Starbucks one morning having a meeting, and of course that cup of coffee. And as I came out, I couldn't help but notice how many license plates were outside of that business. And they were from Pennsylvania, Idaho, and Minnesota, and Indiana and Ohio. And I was just, that was 5 cars that were not just even in the Minnesota cars, but they were really out. So I was just pleased. And there was one gentleman in there as well from a Sioux Falls car that he had rented, and he was from Florida. So it was really fun to see that economic impact that's coming from the hunting. Construction as well. We're seeing a lot of construction around, so that as well. But another big one we have in November is the motor coach industry. for some reason, and what a wonderful reason, we are en route from the people up north to Branson Christmas. So every year we're seeing quite a few motor coaches, but this year we have 23 of them that are stopping at the Redland Center for lunch or something else, and then we have another 17 that are staying overnight. So we are trying to meet them all and greet them and give them a little bag of candy to pass around afterwards and to let them know how happy we are to have them in Watertown. So I just had to share that a little bit because it's really an exciting time for us when you think of October and November being a very quiet month, and it's really been an exciting time. So now with having said that, I will get on to what you asked me to be here for, but that's so exciting that I had to share that. The things we've accomplished, thanks to Stanton and Tracy and the city attorney, and we have filed for our federal ID number. We have formed articles of incorporation that have been established and sent back to us by the Secretary of State, and you had gotten that in your packet that I had mailed to you, so those things are there. And we are the Watertown Convention and Visitors Bureau Incorporated. We have established some proposed bylaws that we'll be doing at our next meeting, November 19th. And we appointed a 9-member board of directors with the city council representative as a liaison to that board. And those board members are Julie Ranum from the Redland Arts Center, Susan Dolney from Vinards Investments, Doug Hilmo from Plains Commerce Bank, Jason Phillips from the Perkins Restaurant, Kirby Zent from Herberger's, Jim Mahold from Mahold's Hardware, Corinne Arnold from Pastimes, Carol Zilgett from KSFY, Garrett Priest from Coffee and Company, and then John Solom is our city council rep. So I think we've met that first time to establish and to sign our articles of incorporation, and I was even more enthused then because they're just a good group that have really got some good ideas how to move the convention and visitors forward and be leaders in our community for the economic impact. So on their next meeting, we will accept the bylaws and elect committee chairs and select meeting times and so on. And the full board will probably be asked to meet just quarterly, with the executive committee meeting once a month to approve the monthly operations of the CBB. I'm working with Tracy on the budget and the cash flow. And so we're ready to go on January 1st of 2008 as the Watertown Convention and Visitors Bureau Incorporated. And we want to make the transition just as seamless as possible. We're working together with the Chamber of Commerce and the WBA, and you know, as I've always said, because we're funded with the BBB tax, we need to support everyone in the community. So once again, that I want to assure you that, you know, where you place the money, it goes to good work, and we just can continually get more and more visitors to Watertown with the funds that you entrust to us. So thank you again, and I feel confident with that board that we're really on the way to making a big difference in Watertown. Do you have any questions?
Well, thank you, Karen,
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
We'd look to hear more from you. Agenda item number 8 is the 2008 E911 contract renewals, and Chief VTech, or Tracy?
Thank you. I was here tonight to talk contracts again. Seems like I've been dealing with a lot of those recently, learning a lot. The police department's 911 emergency center is in the process of renewing the annual contracts with 4 of the counties that our 911 center serves. They are Hamlin, Dade, Grant, and Roberts County. The contracts remain the same from last year. The only change is an increase in the annual funding contribution from each of the 4 counties I mentioned. We've held a series of meetings with the 4 counties. They all 4 are aware of the increases we've asked for, and all 4 have agreed to those increases. I am here tonight to ask for the council's approval for Police Chief VTech, Mayor Fox, and Finance Officer Tracy Turback to sign each of those contracts.
Thank you. Is there a motion then to allow us to sign those contracts for the? So moved by Alderman Gizelback, seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any questions or discussion? How much did the rates contracts go up, Tracy?
Hamlin County went from $19,400 to $24,000. Day County went from $22,000 to $28,600. Grant went from just over $26,000 to $41,000. And Roberts went from just under $9,000 to $12,000. And those numbers reflect the size of the county and the population of each county. That's why there's quite a substantial difference, especially for Grant County.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor then say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Tracy. Next item is item number 9 is the authorization to acquire drainage easement for Bogue Avenue Storm Sewer Project and Dave Peterson.
You should have in your packet a copy of the proposed drainage easement that's being proposed to go on the plat for that particular piece of property. This is probably the only area on that project where we need an easement for storm sewer, or it is the only place we need an easement for a storm sewer to complete that project. And we've had conversations for quite some time with Doug Mogg, who's the owner of that property. When he built his first storage unit, we had talked about it at that time, and he was agreeable to giving us an easement. The cost that Stanton and I have talked to Mr. Mogg about is 35 cents a square foot for this easement, which would amount to $5,115.25. And he is agreeable to that. We have the approval of the Public Works Committee to approve to go ahead with or to recommend that we enter into this agreement for this easement.
Was there any questions on the committee as far as in regards to this purchase of this easement from the committee members? Were they had any questions at all, Dave?
I don't believe there were anything.
Okay. It's pretty unanimous then as far as the
Yes.
committee goes? Okay then. We have a motion then to acquire the drainage easement for Bogue Avenue Stormwater. So moved by Alderwoman Walder. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any questions, discussion?
Mayor, I might
Yes.
add, there's sufficient funds in our land acquisition budget for stormwater purposes to purchase this easement too.
Thank you, Herb. If not, then all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dave. Next is agenda item number 10 is the authorization to advertise for bids for the following equipment. Beginning with number A, 3 patrol cars for the police department. Chief Vitek, is there anything you, or Tracy, you're gonna have anything to say about that?
Chief has given me a training opportunity here.
I see,
Not
so I won't be
answer.
saying her name anymore then, okay?
Simply, I'm just here to ask for the council's authorization for the police department to advertise, to open bids to purchase 3 new marked patrol vehicles for the year 2008.
Is there a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Alderwoman Arbogast, seconded by Alderman Solberg. Any questions, discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Under B and C, we'll take together, we have an authorization to advertise for bids for the wastewater department. First being chemical, 50% sodium hydroxide. Second is a sewer jetter. And thirdly is a 1-ton 4x4. Anything to comment on those items, Mike?
Yeah, just that third item, the 1-ton 4x4 should actually be under the solid waste department. That is the main service truck at the landfill. We're replacing a 1995 13-year-old unit at the landfill for that truck, not wastewater.
Okay. And then the other items under solid waste department was the compost turner and waste and recycling containers, right?
Yep.
Okay. And those all came with the approval of the Public Works Committee?
October 23rd, yes.
Yep. Any questions or discussion on any of those items from the members? None?
They're all budgeted items and have
Okay.
been included in the capital improvement plan discussions from earlier in the summer.
Okay, very good. May I have a motion then to allow the authorization to advertise for bids?
So moved.
So moved by Alderwoman Arbogast. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any questions or discussion?
Mike, I just wonder if this would be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about the new recycling containers.
Yeah, it would be.
It'd be a good way to broach it.
Yeah, what we're doing here, well, first of all, on the containers, the 95-gallon containers is either MSW or municipal solid waste, excuse me, and we budgeted $14,000 for municipal solid waste or garbage containers. And then we budgeted $33,000 for a combination of 35, 65, and 95 gallon containers. And here, most of the 95 gallon containers would be the standard green yard waste container, but the 35 and 65s, what we're going to do here is offer 35 and 65 gallon containers for sale at our cost, just the same way we handled the yard waste containers. The city bids those, purchases those, gets a good container, then sells them to the public at cost, approximately, to give the customer, the community, a good container. So now what we're going to do is offer some recycling containers, which we have not done in the past. And a couple of reasons for this is by doing this, we will have a standard spec for a container. The containers will be durable. They'll have a long warranty on them. They'll have to we'll set a minimum standard in the specification for the wind tunnel test, so although no container is completely windproof, they'll be a lot more wind resistant than the containers we have out there now, where we've all probably bought our own container. Maybe they don't have a lid, maybe they don't have an attached lid, and don't stand up real well. So what we're going to do is do a 35-gallon container for the recycling of paper. And the reason for that size on paper is paper, it falls in a container fairly densely. And this is still picked up manually, so it's quite heavy, and that should meet most people's needs. For 65 gallons, then, we're going to offer 65-gallon containers for the plastic, metal, and cardboard. So your milk jugs and tin cans and cut-up cardboard could go in a 65-gallon container, and they were also we were going to offer some 95s for that in case some people do have a large family, a lot of milk jugs, or recycle out of cardboard. So again, we will spec a container, bid it to get a real quality container for the public, and then sell them at cost. And so we're going to make small orders of those recycling containers to see how they take off, and hopefully they'll take off like the or yard waste containers have. I think we've got about 8,700 blue garbage containers out there, and that we have supplied to the community, and we have sold about 60% of that number, somewhere about 4,500 roughly, green yard waste containers to date. So the public likes these kind of containers, and this way we can get a good price on a nice unit for the public. And we're hoping it'll help the recycling program.
I've got a couple of comments here regarding the recycling containers. That means the eventuality we'll have to buy a truck to do the dumping of those?
No, these are voluntary containers. If the public wants to stick with their container they've already got, they're not required. This isn't anything mandatory. We're going to offer a better container, and so just the same truck. It's the only manual 2-person rear load truck we have out there right now on a route, and so these containers. If they're not full, the staff will be able to pick them up and dump them by hand, but the truck also has a tipper. So if for example, they had a paper container that was very full and heavy, the rear load truck has a tipper, so it's the same truck.
So you're assuring us that we won't have to buying another truck in the next few years or months?
Yeah, because it's most of right now, all of it is manual, and this isn't mandatory, it's voluntary, so there is no requirement to buy these containers.
How many recyclers do we have in town?
That number, there's no clear number out there, but it's probably somewhere between a fourth and a third of the community that has garbage service, I'd estimate.
Seems to me the bigger issue here is getting more people to recycle before we get into these specialized containers.
Well, these are voluntary. If you want to purchase one, you can. We're not requiring anybody to purchase these. And I would think that if you did purchase a container, you would probably continue to recycle. But we will, with a new contract beginning in January of 2008, we will be working with the contractor who has a recycling contract, Dependable Sanitation, and try to promote and advertise recycling in the community.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mayor. Do you plan on picking up paper as an individual and then co-mingling the others?
Yes, that's the way it's always been, an alternating week, a dual stream. Yes. No change in the recycling schedule or anything. Simply going to say if you want to buy a good container that's wind resistant with an attached lid and some wheels on it, we're going to sell those to you at cost.
That's what I was just going to say. I think it's important for people to know the recycling system's going to stay exactly the way
Yep.
it is. You'll just have the opportunity to buy a container that's a little bit more user-friendly.
Yeah. And I guess over time, over years, if people went that route, many years down the line, maybe we would make a change to an automated truck, but you can't do that when you have automated, non-automated containers and rear load truck at this time.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions, discussion? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mike. Agenda item number 11 is the authorization to write off uncollectible ambulance accounts receivable. Tracy?
You have the list in your packet, and these have been, are ready to send to the Collection Bureau for collection.
And the amount again was?
$9,574.50.
Thank you. Is there a motion to that effect, please? So moved by Alderman Garnos. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 12 is the approval of application for the abatement or refund of property taxes to Gladys Wahlberg, which is the elderly assessment freeze. It's in the amount of $360.04. Tracy, is there anything that needs to be mentioned about that?
This comes with the recommendation from the Cottington County Director of Equalization for approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion then, please? So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 13 is the motion to approve the bills and payroll and authorize payment. Is there a motion, please? So moved by Alderwoman Walder. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Alderman Giselbeck. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 14 is the open, and I refer you to the handout that Tracy gave out to you before the meeting. We'll begin with the item number 1, which is the authorization to advertise for bids for the 2008 supply of fuel and other petroleum products, street maintenance materials, asphalt, concrete, and milling and concrete construction. Is there a motion to that effect, please? To authorize to advertise for bids? Motion by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Alderman Meisenheimer. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2 on the open agenda is the authorization to write off an old outstanding check and remit the balance to the state treasurer. It's check number 442281, payable to Headsets WS for $107.62. That check was dated March the 6th, 2006. Tracy, any comments to that?
This check was originally included on the list that we had provided to the council at your last meeting. We deleted it from the list on the assurance from the representative from Headsets WS that they would return the paperwork necessary to get a duplicate check, and we've contacted them numerous times since then. They haven't provided that, so we're going to follow through with the abandoned property procedures.
So it gets to go to the state.
You can get it from the state treasurer.
Okay. Is there a motion, please? So moved by Alderwoman Arbogast, seconded by Alderman Giselbeck. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 3 on the open agenda list is the acknowledgement notice of a raffle to Lake Area Technical Institute. And if I may have a motion to recognize that raffle? Is there a motion? Motion by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next, item number 15 is old business.
Mayor, I had something under
Oh,
the
yes.
open. I would just like to offer congratulations to Councilman Garnis on behalf of myself and the rest of the council too, I'm sure, for being, this Saturday, he will be inducted into the South Dakota Newspaper Hall of Fame. So I think that's a great honor, and I'd like to recognize Councilman Garnis.
Thank you very much.
We're in awe of your presence.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay, next we'll begin with the airport fence update. Eric, could you give us an update, please?
Well, good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Tonight I was asked to come in front of you to kind of give you an update as to where the fence is going, where it's been, and why it's going there. So Dave was kind enough to put up a map of the airport, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but I kind of want to start with kind of our process to what we went through to get to where we are today. I remember a couple years ago we put this project first on our CAP. And at that point in time, we had some conversations as to where the fence would go. We didn't really know if we'd ever get the fence built because of federal funds may not come through. We were lucky enough to get the federal funds this last year, and we were authorized to go ahead, and so we started not too long ago. And we start with the construction of a new 10-foot fence around the perimeter of the airport. The 10-foot fence is mandated by the FAA for wildlife control. And we currently have a 6-foot fence with 1 foot of barbed wire for a total of about 7 feet around the airport. The only portion of the airport currently that has 10 feet is the new portion of the airport we built back in 2000, 2001. That is the T-hangar expansion area, we call it the airport. And the rest, like I said, is 6 feet. Some of the fence decaying, falling down, popping out of the ground, and in need of repair. And this project couldn't have come at a better time for us. Some of the things we want to correct from the past is some of the problems we've had with the current fence. And some of the things and where to relocate that fence has to do with security, wildlife control, and just trying to mitigate some disasters that tend to occur around the airport every once in a while. So the first part of any fence project is determining where we're going to put that fence. A lot goes into that. In fact, I have 7 different factors we like to think about at the airport as to why we put it. We start off with a 15-foot buffer zone between where the fence was and where we're going to put the fence. The 15-foot buffer zone allows the construction crew to construct a fence, build it, fabricate it, and then tear down the old one without having to rip a fence out and not have a fence. Because we don't want to have portions of our airport open for just anybody to come on and cause a hazard, which we've had happen in the past with vehicles, which we'll get to later. But that 15 feet is where we start. We move the fence around that 15 feet until we can comfortably come to a zone in which we accomplish the goals we set out for. The primary goal, like we said, is wildlife control at the airport. We have a wildlife issue at the airport in which we have birds, coyotes, deer, any sort of animal with 4 legs, 2 legs, 6 legs, 8, it doesn't really matter, come to the airport and want to hang out. They use the airport as their personal lair. So we try to find a way to build the fence in areas where they aren't. The good example that we always come to is the slough area, which if I use the mouse, is this area right here. This area, in combination with the springs we got coming off the Derby Downs area, are where most of our wildlife are coming from. They transition from the old county dump over by the water treatment facility across the airport to the slough, and then kind of up the golf course to the lake. On any given foggy day, there could be millions of gulls sitting on the ramp, on the runways and whatnot, and that includes jackrabbits come because of them, coyotes come. And our job is to prevent them wild animals from coming onto the airport and causing a hazard for airplanes. You may recall an incident in which Mesaba landed and had a close call with a coyote. We do not want that to occur in the future, so we construct fence around that area so that won't happen. The FAA funds our fence under the jurisdiction of wildlife. Because we have a fence, the TSA then says, well, you have a fence, so now you must secure it. So the security of the fence is incidental to the fact that we have a fence, but since we have a fence, we have to secure it. I don't catch-22 for a fence. We have the fence in our zone for wildlife control, like I've said before. So you may recall, not too long ago, maybe 10 years, maybe a little bit sooner than that, our fence used to come up 33rd, I believe that is, along Golf Course Road, up through Putter's Green like this, right along the road. It was determined back when Darwin and Darrell, I believe, were the airport manager and superintendent, that the fence needed to be relocated to this red line that comes down along the slough. Now that's great. It got all the wetland outside of the airport and retained quite a bit of the airfield. Unfortunately, it was built in the slough, where on a wet year or even in some dry years, the fence is underwater. And because of frost, the fence is now pushing out of the ground and falling over. That doesn't really solve our wildlife issues. In fact, it creates quite a big security issue with the TSA. So that fence needs to be relocated. That's one of the main areas that we're relocating because of wildlife. And installing predator fence, we're actually going to take the old fence, relocate it, lay it on the ground, bury it, so no animals can dig under the fence. We'll be installing that predator fence from about where the H is down to about where the G is. So you're going to have quite a bit almost a mile of fence that's predator fence there. And all of this fence right here will have underground buried fence in order to prevent animals from digging over here to cross the airport. Once the new fence is in place, we should be able to prevent all transient wildlife from getting across the airport, so we don't have to worry about weird coyotes going over to the Humane Society to get their dog food, which does occur quite a bit. Okay, so we talked about wildlife, but like I said, we have security issues that we have to mind too, and because the TSA has certain restrictions on what I can and cannot say in public about security, I'll talk about what I can. Security, we have a 10-foot fence we're going to build, and we're going to start with that 15 feet away from where the current fence is. We locate that fence, judging on where that fence needs to be for security, which I kind of just said. We'll start over at a clockwise position, and we kind of work our way around the airport. A is over by Airco Aviation, our basically gas station or gateway for our community, for our general aviation public. And we're moving the fence there a couple different ways. We'll kind of zoom in here a little bit. And the current fence actually has a couple different jogs in it that aren't really necessary, so we're going to remove those and get rid of them. We're actually eliminating 3 90-degree turns and opening up quite a nice grass space along the road so the fence isn't so imposing for vehicle traffic driving past it. Because a 10-foot fence is a heck of a lot more imposing on a vehicle driving by it than a 6-foot fence is. Because remember, that last top foot is barbed wire. You really can see pretty transparent on it. So we move across. Security, primary concerns. We want to move the fence away from the public. We don't want the fence next to the public. We want to create a buffer transition zone between where the public kind of congregates and where the fence will be. This allows us to monitor the fence for people. If in the winter we come up to a fence and we see footprints along the fence, we know that isn't quite right. Now, like on South Lake Drive where the fence is located next to the road, anybody can walk next to the fence and it just looks nonchalant. But in the future, that fence won't be there. So if somebody's next to the fence in the future, we know there's something nefarious going on and we can kind of keep an eye on that. Okay, so with that in mind, remember we're trying to move the fence away from objects that are fixed, away from objects that need to get access into the airport. So like utilities, any utilities that exist. Good example would be Highway 20. I'll try to move over here like this. Highway 20's got, I believe, a rather large sewer main and a rather large water main that run parallel to the road. You'll notice, not very good here, but that red line represents our current fence. Our current fence runs, a good distance away from the highway, but does encompass the water main and the gas line, or water main and the sewer line. By moving the fence in towards the airport, we allow that gas and water main to be outside the airport, allowing utilities to get access to that without us having to grant them that authority. We want to minimize the number of people that get access to the airport that don't need an operational need to be there. So they don't have an operational need to be there, so we eliminate them from having the ability or the need to get in. So we move that fence in. That includes all those utility boxes you see along the fence. Each one of those utility boxes could be used as a catalyst for someone to scale the fence. It doesn't take very much for somebody to get on a utility box, hop over the fence. Think about it, it's not very complicated. The same way we eliminate outside 90-degree corners. Outside 90-degree corners can be used to jump over the fence by constructing yourself a little ladder. We don't want those, we try to prevent them. So those security issues we take in mind when constructing that new fence. Like I said, in A, we're eliminating those corners. At B there, we're actually eliminating a gate, which is one of our other goals, is to eliminate unnecessary access points into the airport. At B, we're eliminating an unnecessary turn, a gate, and we're moving a utility meter that's on the shop outside the fence, so utilities doesn't need to get access into the airport to get to that meter, which we'll talk about later, because there's other meters we're doing that to as well. We kind of talked about C a little bit before. C along Airport Drive, the A7 Slough, Corsair 2, and along Airport Drive, or Highway 20. Airport Drive is moving in because that's one of those 15 feet buffer zones we start with to get the transition zone between people, road, and the fence. We don't want the fence next to the people imposing. We need to make sure we can retain that buffer zone. And semi-trucks like to park there, and we don't really need a semi-truck parked up next to our fence to make it look conspicuous. So we try to eliminate that. One of the facts with C we talked about before, and some minor detail back when we did this project, when we originally designed it. We originally designed to have the A7 outside the fence, and we've had some conversation as to that. And we'll actually rechange the engineering here at the fence to make the A7 have its own contained aircraft area. This will allow the VFW to service that aircraft, maintain it, without having to have training or require us to open a gate for them. There will be a buffer zone between us and them. There'll be their own zone. They can do their own business, and we won't have to worry about them having access to every gate at the airport. We move around. The fence is actually changing around the National Guard rifle range for a couple different reasons here, actually. One is we have a lease with the National Guard, which is under review, and we want to make sure that the National Guard has access to a place to park their pallet trucks that doesn't include access to the AOA. We don't want them to have access onto the main airport, because then they would require driver's training, driver's education, what to do, why not to go on a runway. They require beacons, radios, all this stuff that they require if they were going to drive on the airfield. We don't want them to have that stuff because they're probably not going to have it, and we don't want to be caught out of spec. So we construct them an area to have those pallet trucks in, and we go around. We're actually constructing a road for wastewater to get down to their lift station down here. That lift station is currently located inside the fence, which means that they need to come into the airport on 6th Avenue, plow their own road on our access routes to get to that lift station during the winter. They would rather not access the airport. I would rather not have them access inside the airport. So in order to eliminate that, we make the fence accommodate them. Whenever we possibly can, we accommodate somebody with a movable dynamic fence rather than having to move massive multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment. The fence moves, we construct a road, and that's where that fence happens to go. We move on around the fence a little bit more, and we come across the south part here, which gets the most confusing. At section E there, we're just relocating the fence just a little bit, so we get rid of the jog in the fence, eliminate the jog, and move the gate to be a straight on the fence rather than having the gate be a 20-foot gate on a corner. We can make that gate a 10-foot and still get the vehicles through as efficiently as we could on that crooked gate. You can move around. We come across on the opposite side. We come to section F. Section F is on 22nd Street and 3rd Avenue South. 3rd Avenue South and 22nd Street isn't exactly the best intersection for the airport, because every couple times a year we get some inebriated driver that decides that
It's
they
actually
want-
21st Street.
Oh, my excuse, sorry. 21st Street, the inebriated driver comes driving onto the airport, driving through our fence. Now, the latest event we had with this is the driver went through the fence 4 times, in, and out. Don't know why they decided to do that, but we need to prevent that from occurring for a safety standpoint and for our own security. We don't need a drunk driver driving around on our runway because it leads to very bad things occurring. So the fence comes in. The fence comes in 50 feet, in fact, to accommodate them having the inebriate stop distance from that curb. That we hope to instill some sort of ballast or other sort of notification to make that turn more evident, but we want to make sure that fence isn't anywhere near the intersection, because a 10-foot fence will stop a vehicle a heck of a lot more violently than that 6-foot fence will. And so the fence comes out 50 feet and then goes way up towards Foundation Fields. Does it really need to go up that high? Perhaps not. But what this will allow is Foundation Fields some growth span if they ever decide they want to grow. Those trees down there will actually be torn out as part of this project, and so that area will be nice prime farmland for now, and then in the future, if it ever needs to be developed, it can. The 4th Avenue gate, or the 4th Avenue blue that you see down here, south of the runway 35, which is this one. This is 4th Avenue coming along right here. That fence is actually moved in 15 feet like the rest of some of the fence because of those things we talked about before. The buffer zone, safety, imposing. It's just a bigger fence. The fence along, I think this is 33rd, doesn't move quite much. It's actually far enough away from the road where it doesn't really give us a problem. It can't really come in too much more because all the springs are there, culverts are there. We really don't want to give the animals any more attractants than they already have. It does, like I said here before, it does change quite a bit at G here and bend up towards H. G it changes it used to be down here underneath the grade. We actually could never see the fence driving along the runway before. Now as it comes up on G, we'll actually be able to look at the fence from the runway, and we'll be able to actually observe the traffic that's going on that fence without having to worry about not being able to see it anymore. That, and because, well, as you can see, the fence actually is past our taxiway, which is actually done. And we can talk about kind of our runway project maybe later, but our taxiway has actually been completed, and the fence has been relocated in this area and actually constructed out to about right here. So all this fence right here is done. It's already been constructed by the contract for the runway. Like we mentioned before with H, we talked about how that fence used to be located way the heck out here, including that shelter belt and alfalfa field, the slough, a bunch of things that wildlife finds very attractive. They're going to get through that fence no matter how tall. It could be to heaven, and they'd still find their way through it. So we move it further towards the airport, probably as far as we could probably get a fence. This is actually the building restriction line. Nothing can actually get closer to the airport than that. So we build that fence, and we build it straight. This is actually longer than a mile. We have more than a mile of straight fence. It's probably the longest straight fence of any airport ever, maybe. It goes straight. We get to the intersection here at Putter's Green, and we had two choices here, actually. This is kind of one of the things we've debated back and forth between us and the engineers, is how we could approach this area over here. We didn't really want to go back to where we were because we didn't want to be straddling that wetland right there. We don't want to be on it because we don't want that fence to have 17 different angles to accomplish a circle when we could just make a straight line. And we could have maybe come across like this and gone up, but then again, what would be the point of that when we can just go straight? So we go straight to South Lake Drive. At South Lake Drive, we kind of back ourselves away from the road to get clearance for those poles that they put in, to get clearance from those guide wires they put in. We don't want a pole outside and a guide wire inside. We need to be able to have utilities have complete control of that pole without needing us to give them the access to do that. So it comes in, it gets away from the park benches. Right now we have those park benches within those 10-foot zone. We want to get them out. So we get them out, and we only have one bend in the fence where we probably got rid of, I don't know, 6, maybe 5. But we come up to the group of trees here, which will be removed as part of this project. And we kind of come across this way. Now we saved ourselves about 4,500 feet of fence there. And that area could be used for just about anything. Lease it, industrial development. It's actually not a portion of the airport. In fact, the airport could probably never actually use it for actual airport development. But it is a concurrent use. It's a buffer between us and the rest of the community, and it could be used for anything that would meet that purpose. The fence stays where it is between I and J, and at J, it changes a little bit. You have to remember, Lake Erie Tech had the great fortune of getting delivered a FedEx 727, which they're currently constructing the hard pads for, which sits kind of like right underneath the J. So we need to construct a fence that would accommodate their aircraft to prevent people from getting access to their aircraft and yet save Lake Erie Tech the trouble of having this building that had access to the airport from the land side. We want to minimize those gates, like we said. So we construct the gate out past their engine run-up bay, and that eliminates that access point. Those are the 10 major areas in which the fence is actually changing from what we have today. And I can answer any questions you might have about specifics. But that's pretty much in a nutshell how the fence is moving.
Eric, have you checked with the VFW, and would they prefer to leave that fence there for, to prevent kids climbing on the plane or any?
Do you want to handle that, Gary?
Yes, this has been under the Military Affairs Committee of the Chamber, and we've made that request to Eric to keep it enclosed for that very purpose, to keep kids off there and the liability of it being open. And besides, one of the requirements for getting that plane in the first place was to keep it in a secure location, thus requiring the fence.
What you're not kind of seeing here, I didn't draw it on this map, but I mean, you see the red line there, that red line in the corner, that's going to kind of stay there. What you're going to wind up with is kind of like a home plate shape right there. The blue line's going to come up around underneath it, and you're going to get two connecting lines that run north, right on those corners are. So you imagine what a home plate looks like. That's pretty much the shape of the fence that you're going to get in that area.
Eric, I do have a couple of questions here.
Sure.
When you go down on C along Highway 20,
sure,
you're back 15 feet. Okay, and then you get down here in this corner where you go south again.
Yep.
And as I recall, the new fence is within 2 or 3 feet.
Yeah, that fence actually doesn't move at all. One of the problems we have with that development is we actually have development going on in that area. And because since we have Gary Steinmet's home development right here, and Custom Fab purchased that slot below that, it really didn't behoove us to move the fence in anymore, because as you can see down here, Custom Fab's already creeping up on that fence pretty good. So we want to make sure that we don't give away property to close neighbors. You know, we don't want to encourage them to encroach, but we don't want to make it so we're right in their backyard. It's a difficult border to
But
walk.
then the next question, if you'll go further on south,
Okay,
where is the ice rink?
down here, right? That should be it right there.
Okay, that new stretch of fence is a lot wider than 15 feet.
50 feet.
That's 50 feet.
Yeah, the whole stretch there from 21st to 3rd is all 50 feet in. And
Why?
that's done that because, like I said up here, we have vehicles that want to puncture through our fence, and we don't want to create odd angles in our fence where we come out, or let's say we're up here, we come across, and we come like this, and then we cut back in. We want to cut down on the number of corners in the fence that we have. This fence is actually going to be in 50 feet straight south, so we eliminate the number of bends in the fence.
Now, the farmer that leases that, will he continue to lease that outside the fence then?
You know, we did some math on that, and we mow it 15 feet outside and inside the fence. We also mow where the bike path is. He can actually farm about 40 feet of that 50 feet setback. So he can farm most of it.
And then who mows the rest of it?
Well, we mow all of the Highway 20, all of the lake. We mow just about the entire perimeter of the airport. So
We mow the perimeter because we've got to keep that fence, the line along the fence clean so that we can inspect on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Eric?
Yeah, talk to
Yep.
us about the runway on the taxi.
Sure. Okay. I don't think I've ever really been to city council to kind of go through the project since we started it. So I'll kind of go from the beginning a little bit and just touch base as to how this has gone. We started the project a month late because of rain and, well, snow and what we had in March. We were actually supposed to start, I think, the middle of March, and we finally wound up starting the middle of April. And that included working on the first 5,100 feet of runway 1230. That would be from here down to about right there. Well, right there. You can kind of see the difference in the asphalt. In fact, this is probably about right there. So we started working all new lighting in here. This area, this area, this area, that's our tail taxiway, and all of the runway. The runway was narrowed, installed new pavement shoulders, all new airport lighting, and actually was rejuvenated, new painted, and it actually looks fairly nice. If you have the opportunity to go out there and have a look at it, it's a pitch black now, where before it was differential pavement conditions. Now it's a fairly good runway.
Now, is this that 25-foot runway that was talked about some time ago that the pilots came to us?
The 25 feet that you're probably referring to is the 25 feet from the distance. You can see it. This is the dark areas. That's center 100 feet. The center 100 feet's actually been maintained every year since it's been started. What you're probably talking about is this outside 25 feet shoulder on each runway, which hasn't been maintained since like 1980 because the FAA didn't let us spend any AIP funds on it, so it never was maintained to the status of the other inside 100. That was the portion of the runway that was removed, and we installed new 12-foot shoulders. So the runway's actually, I guess I can't do the math off the top of my head, but I think it's 14 feet shorter.
126 feet.
Yeah, it's 126 feet wide now in the winter. So 126 feet wide, in pavement lighting, and it's pretty bright in the winter or in night. We were out there working on the taxiway not too long ago, and the dark at night, turn those new LED runway lights on, and I think we all went blind for a while. It was some pretty intense new lighting that they have on that runway now. Once phase one of the project was completed, which was this portion, which actually went fairly quick once they got started. They actually caught up that month. I think they were only running about 2 weeks behind when they finally got that phase of the project completed. Then came phase two. A lot of things were associated with phase two. All new lighting on Bravo, the narrowing of 1735, the narrowing of this section of 1230, the installation of lighting on Alpha 4, the construction of the haul routes that you see here, the construction of your new taxiway Charlie that runs from 3.5 all the way up to 1.2, which is this outline right here, including Charlie 1 and Charlie 2. all new in-pavement lighting. Once again, the runways are now 126 feet wide with those 12-foot shoulders in paved lightings. That project ran, I think the runways were done about 2 weeks after they were supposed to be done. We were supposed to open them September 30th, and we didn't really open them until October 15th. We're still kind of getting the final touches on the taxway done. The taxway's been painted, everything's been painted over again. We're just getting the last of the runway lighting cans in on the taxway, and the taxway will be ready to open, and we should have this project done by Friday.
Okay. Any other questions for Eric? If not, then thank you, Eric.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. Good presentation, right. Okay. Next, we'll move on to agenda item number 17 is liaison member reports. And Pat, you said you had one from the library.
Yes, as a member of the library board, as a liaison member, I have some figures that were given to me from Mike, and they're figures from July 23rd, 2007 through October 23rd of 2007. And the items of circulation in that period of time was 77,460. And in comparison to 2005, we're using 2005 because of 2006, when we moved into the temporary location, there was a downsizing of it. And in 2005, there was items in that period of time was 56,339. So there was 38% increase in the new library. And for the new patrons registration, in that time period, in 2007, there was 1,159, and in 2005, it was 446, with 160% increase. And the out-of-county cards issued in 2007 was 34, compared to 2005 of 8, which is a 325%. And if you do your math on the items in circulation, if it keeps the same pace, in 2007 there would be 309,864 items in circulation, compared to 2005 there was 213,191.
Wow, very good. Thank you, Pat. Are there any other council members with liaison member reports? See, Nancy?
Just a quick one from the safety committee, because the pet ordinances had been so much in the news. Safety committee did decide at our last meeting that we would just step back from all the new ordinances for 1 year, keep good track of everything that has to do with pets in the city, and then revisit it at that time. And also, you'll be seeing some flashing lights by the schools in the near future. That's a cooperation between the city and the school district. So,
thank you.
Also from the safety committee, on North Lake Drive, the appropriate signage has been put in place, which should give truckers an opportunity to slow down, etc.
Thank you.
If you recall the squabbles we had a while back.
I would remind the committee members that we're approaching that deadline of December 1st, and that was geared on the airport projects, being completed, which it is. So I was posed the question today, and I referred the police department back to the safety committee for final jurisdiction on that.
Thank you, Herb. Any other council liaison member reports? If not, then we.
This isn't.
Yes.
This isn't a report, other than a comment. It's understood. There's a rumor floating around that our vice president of a council is celebrating a birthday today, and this should be so noted. You want us to sing happy birthday?
no, that wouldn't be necessary. Thank you.
Okay, well, then we won't.
Thank you, Gordy. We will need to go in executive session for contract negotiations, and I assume we may be taking action when we come out of executive session. So if I may have a motion to go to executive session, please. So moved by Alderman Solberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman Walder. Any addition, questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We will go into executive session. Have a motion to come out of executive session. Motion by Alderwoman Walder. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderwoman Arbogast. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We are out of executive session. I would ask for the council to enter into a motion to allow the mayor and the finance officer to enter into an agreement with the Watertown Development Company in regards to a construction of a building that's going to be leased out to the Faultless Netting Company. The city's portion is going to be a grant of $250,000 plus tax incremental financing in the amount of $350,000. This will all be taking place, economic development projects that are going to be taking place within the Pheasant Ridge Industrial Park. May I have a motion, please? Is that enough, Stan?
Wasn't there a $300,000 component as well, Mayor, or not? to
I'm
exceed
sorry, and
amount?
also a $300,000 infrastructure improvement. Is there a motion, please? So moved by Alderman Garnos. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Alderwoman York. Any additional questions or questions? If not, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Have a motion to adjourn. So moved by Alderwoman Walder, seconded by Alderman Silberg. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned. Thank you.